Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of
The Lo and Zo Show.
We are so excited to be coming back to you guys today with another episode. And what are we talking about today, Zo?
Today we are talking about not resisting your anxiety when it shows up for you. We're going to be talking about our philosophy behind understanding what anxiety is and the role it plays in your energetic up-leveling.
And the role it plays in manifesting as well. So, without further ado,
let's get started.
I'm Lo.
And I'm Zo, and this is The Lo and Zo Show.
We're coaches and entrepreneurs who firmly believe that an abundant mind is the key to an abundant life.
On this podcast, we're going to be talking everything from how to manifest more money, travel, success in business, and beyond,
to overcoming the blocks that are holding you back,
to rewiring your brain so you can easily attract whatever it is you want the most in life.
If you haven't already, be sure to join us inside our Facebook community, the Queen Mind Tribe, for daily tips, mindset hacks, manifesting tricks, and more that'll allow you to build the confidence you need
to manifest the abundant AF life you deserve.
Now let's get started.
All right, guys, so today we're talking all about not resisting your anxiety when it shows up. Anxiety is a feeling that we all have to face at some time or another in our lives. Some of us more than others, and some of us are more in tune with it. And in the self-help world, it's so
much like so many people talk about feeling good, being positive, and it almost like puts more negative emotions in this like really bad place.
Yes, and making yourself wrong for feeling anxiety. And I mean, this is something that I faced this week, and Laura was there to mirror back to me like, no, this is why your anxiety is here. It's going to be gone, but don't resist it, because if you resist, it persists.
Yes, exactly. And that's really what we wanted to talk to you guys about today. And not only that, but this pattern that I've seen in myself and in other people I've coached and friends of mine is that when we're dealing with the most amount of anxiety is right before we're about to have a big up level. Mm-hmm. And so we can talk a little bit about like why that happens. But before that, what I wanted to kind of dive into is like, when you get into the world of manifesting and intentionally using your thoughts to create your reality, I think there's such an emphasis on, what you feel attracts. So feel good all the time. And then some anxiety gets introduced because we are human beings. And it's like we have to switch it, have to change the emotion because I don't want to attract bad things. And this is where Zoe really...
I have a really hard time with this when I'm in anxiety. When I'm out here and when I'm listening to you say it right now, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But when I'm in it,
when you're in it, you're like, and I do the same thing, but it's like, how do I have to stop worrying? So let's say it's anxiety about money, because I think that that's something that so many people have experience with. So let's say, you're experiencing anxiety about money. You don't know how you're going to pay your bills at the end of the month, especially if you are an entrepreneur and you don't always know where your next payday is coming from. And you get into this place of anxiety, this place of worry. And there's it's almost like an added fear that if I'm worrying about money, I'm not going to get more of it. So, or not going to be able to receive any more of it. So not only now are you worried about money, but now you're worried about worrying about money.
And then you're worrying about what your worried thoughts, which is anxiety, is the emotions with that in the body. And if you know law of attraction, then you know that, you have to feel things for them to manifest. And then if you're feeling all the feels in your body of that fear, of that anxiety, that worry, maybe it's about, like you said, paying the bills or being an entrepreneur, not knowing where the next paycheck is coming. That just feeds it all.
Yeah, totally. And it can be so just really like I get almost into this place of desperation when I'm worried about something and then I can't stop worrying about it. And so we want to talk to you guys about like what we do that has really allowed us to move through it. And we're not always perfect at it. We usually have to reflect back to the other person like, hey, you got to just chill out and be in it. And I think that's what we really wanted to talk about today is like, if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling worry or stress, you can't just push those emotions down. You can't just switch them. And this is like one thing that, again, almost like, I just feel like there's so much misinformation out there with people who are talking about manifesting and law of attraction and aligning with through your emotions what you wish to see manifest, which is just that like switch it, right? Start thinking positive thoughts. And it just really, that's not the way that our brain works. We have to look for whatever the better feeling thought is. But for me, the fastest way for me to get into a different place is to allow myself to be in the emotion that I'm in.
Yes.
Rather than trying to change it, because exactly what Zoe said, what you resist persists.
And when you are in that state of anxiety and like you said, just kind of sifting into it, leaning into it, you can often uncover a lot of stories, limiting beliefs, things in your blind spot
true.
because you're accessing and choosing to look a bit deeper if you choose to and not suppress. And that's the important thing, is Laura mentioned, you have to feel it out. You have to let it out, because whatever's stirring up inside of you, it just needs this energetic release to happen so it can replenish with more positive energy, a more positive belief system. And it's just your body's natural way of doing that. And I don't think that us as a society, as humans, we recognize it as that.
I was just having a conversation about this morning with a friend who's like just had such a huge up level in her life because she's finally stopped making her emotions wrong. Like she's finally stopped trying to push them down and saying, well, why are they here? And I think also, I mean, it's important to distinguish that we are not our emotions. So if you're feeling sad, you're feeling anxious, whatever, you can just say, I just feel those ways. That's not who I am. I am, and this is one thing, as we say, I am sad. It's like an I am statement, or I am anxious. We actually move into the identity of anxiety rather than just identifying it as something that we're currently feeling. And I remember hearing on a different podcast this sort of metaphor of when you touch a flame, you don't say, I am burning. You say, ouch, it burns, or it's hot, or whatever. I can't remember exactly how he said it, but it was so true. We don't take on that way of feeling, the physical feeling, as being who we are. But when it comes to our negative emotions, we really move into this like belief that, well, I am anxiety, I am anxious right now. So the first thing I think is to say, I'm feeling this emotion, and that immediately puts you into a place of just power over it a little bit, or at least not like demonizing it so much and not making yourself feel bad for the fact that you have human emotions. I mean, I think that's one thing that's so important to look at, is like, even if you're the most self-developed, happy, abundant person, you are human, and there's still going to be things that you wish were different, right? You're still going to have times when you feel really, really anxious, and it's important to just be okay with that. And you wouldn't want to be super happy all the time anyways, because you need the contrast.
Yeah, and I think like I'm such a visual person, and just as you're describing that, I think of my emotions like the weather. And when, let's say, an anxiety storm comes in, I just have to weather it. I can't just decide to flick a switch and be like, sunshine, bye, anxiety, because that doesn't work. It needs
you do try, though.
I do try.
When she's in it, she's like, I just need to feel good. I'm like, okay, so.
But I do really try to have this reframe on now, that when I'm feeling emotions, just as you said, not to identify with I am anxious or I am anxiety, let's say, but more so just understanding anxiety is here. It might be hanging out for the day, but it's not going to be here for much longer. I'm not going to always feel this way. And the more that I accept it sitting with me, then the faster it's going to leave, because I'm not resisting.
Yeah, so as you're saying that, I was thinking about a book that I read maybe it was just like a year ago, and it's actually called The Ultimate Key to Happiness, which usually I would look at that name and think like, no, thank you. Like, but I heard the author talking on another podcast, and he was describing how it's not emotions that are the issue, it's the story we give the emotion. So if you're, for instance, watching a movie and it's a thriller, you are feeling anxious through watching that movie, and that's why you want to watch the thriller, or you want to watch a movie, you want to see someone else's story that creates those up and down cycles in your emotions, or it creates those ups and those downs in your emotion. And that's why, like, if you have gone and seen a movie and you've really loved it, it's because it's evoked those emotions in you, right? At times you felt sad, at times you felt scared or on edge, at times you felt really, really happy, and at the end you go, that was a great movie, because you felt the emotions, but you didn't give it personal attachment or personal meaning. Whereas when we feel anxious, or we feel worried or stressed or sad in our life, we it's the story about it that we have of like, I'm sad and I shouldn't be, or I'm anxious and that means I'm not going to attract the money that I want, or whatever. And that's what we make so wrong about it. So we actually enjoy feeling emotions. If you went and saw a movie that was just happy the whole way through and like nothing really happened, you'd be super bored.
Totally.
So the emotions are not actually, that was such a like profound like understanding for me to have, is the emotions are things that we actually enjoy feeling. It's the story that we attach to them. You could go through a whole movie feeling anxious for the character, but there's no personal story behind it. And so you actually enjoy that feeling, right? That's why you're watching it in the beginning, or in the first place. So I don't know, that was just sort of like a really interesting way of looking at it. So what we really need to do is detach the story and look at like, what is there? Why is this here for me? And that's one thing like that has really helped me, is if I'm in a lot of anxiety, I write about it. I journal about it, and I look at, what am I feeling, and just sit down and like write everything that's coming to your head in a journal and really investigate, like really feel into it.
Yeah. And I like to journal about it too, but I'd say more so I kind of just sit with it, like in a meditation or just sit and ponder. And I ask that question, why? Like, why is this here? And I try to put myself into a heart-centered space where I'm like feeling it. Like, where is it showing up in my body? Why am I feeling this? Like, what am I identifying the thoughts with the feelings in the body? And I really try to go inwards about it rather than kind of like spilling it all out. Like, that definitely helps me too. But I found that I've actually found a lot of answers by just sitting and looking inwards and just keep on asking why. And if I'm resisting a thought from being there, like let's say one of these anxious thoughts or something unpleasant, I'm like, why is this here right now? And keep sifting.
Yeah, for me, one thing I've found, and I think it's just like finding whatever works for you, right? So for me, that's like journaling about it. And I might actually ask, like, what is this here to show me? Or like even get to the point where I'll say, universe, whatever, subconscious, take this off of my shoulders, whatever I'm worrying about. And that might help. It really just depends. Or it might be like what Zoe's describing. When I'm having like a particularly anxious day in my business, for whatever reason, usually I'm like, I don't know, halfway through a launch and I'm worried about something or whatever it is, and I'm trying to get my work done even though I'm feeling all those emotions. One of the best things that I've done is just say, what if I didn't do any of this work today in this anxiety? Like, what if I gave myself the day to just feel the way that I'm feeling and take off of my shoulders, off of my plate, everything I'm telling myself I need to do, which is only adding to the anxiety.
Yes.
And usually what ends up happening is I immediately am like, oh yeah, I don't have to do these things today. The world will keep spinning. This is not going to make or break my business if I don't get through all of these things that are causing me anxiety. And usually what ends up happening is I feel way better. And then, a couple hours later, I feel motivated again.
Yeah. And that's an act of self-love in itself. And when you are choosing yourself in that moment, you're also not putting that energy, that anxious energy behind the actions in your business. You're waiting until you can be very intentional about it. You can cultivate your positive, vibrant energy and put that towards it. And by you choosing to, let's say, take a day off or doing like the bare minimum that you can in that day, you are actively saying, okay, anxiety, you can sit with me for today. I'll let you be here. I'm not going to resist you. You can just be here and I'll take a break.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because I'm in the middle of a program launch right now. And when like the cart officially opened, usually what I do is send an email to my email list to let people know. And it was like, I think the day after cart had opened and I still hadn't sent an email. And I was saying to another friend of mine, I'm like, I keep telling myself that I have to do this, but maybe instead, like, I'm not going to write an email that I even feel good about coming from this place. So what if instead, like, I just go in and chill out? And this is like a really profound difference for me to have a shift rather for me, because I used to just be like all action all the time. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to like have a bath and I'm going to like meditate a little bit. And if I feel inspired after that, then I will send this email. And if not, I'll wait until tomorrow. And she was like, well, you are like the aligned entrepreneur right now, like alignment before action. But that even like a year ago when I talked about alignment before action, I wasn't always necessarily doing it. I was still in this idea of like the anxiety was feeding how much action I was still taking out of this place of fear. So I think we have to, like, it's so important to just allow the emotions to be there and not try to like force our way through them and not make them wrong.
Yeah. And just be in tune with them, like recognize when it's showing up and don't wait. Like don't continue to take the action. If you have the opportunity to take a break, even if it's just for 5-10 minutes, like go for a walk, like choose to face it for whatever reason it's there and whenever it shows up for you, when and if you can.
Yeah. Yeah. And one other thing I wanted to bring up on this topic was something Zoe and I talk a lot about, which is that a lot of the time, especially if you are really going to work on yourself and you're really working on your own self-perception, the time when you feel the most anxious is the time when you are right about to up level.
Yes.
And I have experienced this so many times. It's like, it really is, darkest before the dawn. And so when I'll go through a couple of weeks where for some reason I feel really anxious about something, and then I come out of it and have some like big thing happen in my business, or I just attract something I've been working towards for a long time, or I just start like get to a new like energetic precedent with how I'm feeling about my life.
Yeah.
And I know like Zoe and I were just talking about this on the way to the studio video today of you over the last couple of weeks were in that anxiety. And today you're just like, I'm just so great. Like we were walking here. So he's looking at the water and being like, everything's creation. I'm like, wow, you're so like Mother Zoe, how do you say it? Zorisa.
Mother Zorisa.
Like she's full on. And I said that to you the other day too. I was like, you're in a lot of anxiety. It's because things are shifting. So
yeah. And I remember, I want to bring up this time in the summertime when I was really working a lot on myself. I would say like really facing a lot of like deep, dark things from the past, like healing the past. And I remember I was in crippling anxiety for a period of time. And you just said, Zoe, what have you been asking for? Like you've been asking for large sums of abundance in like love and finances, and like these are some of the most difficult things that people face. So you're like, just trust it on the other side. Like you're calling forth that, and that's going to require a new version of you,
right? Which
does require the energetic up leveling, and you feeling these emotions is literally the excess, the what is not serving you leaving your body. So no wonder it feels so uncomfortable.
All those things did come to you, right, in one way or another. But I think the reason that happens is because, and I explain this to people all the time, when you are up leveling and you're doing that work, your ego does not like it, because the more aligned you get with who you really are, the less ego you are. And the ego doesn't like that. Its entire job is to keep you safe and to keep itself alive, right? So when it knows that like you're stepping outside of your comfort zone, this is like as soon as you decide, okay, I'm going to start the business or join a program or hire a coach, this is what happens is the ego is like, oh my gosh, she's moving on without us. We need to like dig our nails in and give her all the reasons in the world why she should take a big step back and come back to what's comfortable. So that's, I think, why you get a lot of that anxiety happening when you're in the process of doing that. And if you can follow it through, you guys, I've seen and had myself the biggest breakthroughs on the other side of like a mountain of anxiety. But if most people do is say, ooh, this is uncomfortable, I don't like it, I'm going to step back into my comfort zone, instead of just keep continuing to work through it. And it happens like almost overnight. Sometimes it's a couple of days of anxiety. Sometimes it's a month of anxiety, and you might not even know why, but follow it through. Like don't just work through it.
And one thing you said to me yesterday, you're like, just go the course. Just go with the course. So
I do not remember saying that, but cool.
Well, you probably channeled it. And you're like, this is just there's no way out but through. And if you guys can reframe it, just like as we had here, that there's something beautiful on the other side, whatever you're calling in is on the other side of this, then you can just have more comfort, even though it's a very uncomfortable feeling, but you can have more comfort in having these emotions weather through you, just trusting that, okay, on the other side, as soon as this is done, this does not belong to me. It's not identified with me, just as we stated in the beginning. It's not who you are. It's just something that's happening, and let it be.
And it's supposed to be there. I think that's the thing that we don't... And I mean, it's hard because when you're in that vibration, when you're in that emotion, it's like you don't have access to all of this.
Yeah.
And it's like someone will be like, well, just do a quick like gratitude practice or have a, perspective shift or journal. And I'm just like, no, I don't want to do any of those things. Like I don't even, it's like the energy that I'm in is not aligned with doing any of those things. So I just don't. Like, I'd rather just, resist this and sit in this like discomfort in like not a productive way at all.
Yeah.
But I think like what we really want you guys to hear with this episode is just there's nothing wrong with you if you're experiencing human emotions. In fact, it is a very good thing. And the more that we can just be okay with it and be okay with the fact that like for the rest of your life, it's going to be up and down. And you wouldn't really want it to be anything other than that anyways. It was just happy. I mean, Zoe thinks that she could live like a perfectly happy life every day and love it. I think you'd get bored. I think that
I don't know if I would get bored, but it's okay. Like, it's okay. I understand.
I think that if it was one emotion all the time,
you're right.
You wouldn't like, it's not to say that I think you want, lots of anxiety or anything like that. But I think that we really appreciate those when we feel really happy because of the contrast.
Of course, you're right.
So it would just become like it's like when people, make a lot of money in their business, they're only as grateful as they are they're only grateful if they had something to compare it to before that was the opposite. Does that make sense? So like if you came from really struggling with money and now you're making money, you have so much appreciation. Whereas people who are like born into money, they don't have that appreciation for money. It never has that, like, they might seek to get more of it, but it never feels the way that they think it's going to feel because they don't. So I think like it's just important to recognize that you're going to have bad days and good days, and you'll appreciate the good days because you had the bad days.
Of course. And just stay the course.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that's what we have to say
Yeah.
on that topic. Just don't make yourself wrong for being a human being, and you're not your emotions.
Exactly. And trust that if you are facing anxiety, you're just energetically up leveling
Yes.
to the place where all of your manifestation goals are.
Yeah.
And so congratulations for feeling anxiety.
Yeah. Well, and like one thing I always say to people is like, if you've chosen the life of self-development and the life of manifesting what you want in, business or in your career or whatever, it really takes something. Like, it is courageous people who choose this path. And so it's not going to be comfortable all the time. So just like give yourself a break, you guys. If you're listening to this, it's because you're a certain type of person and you deserve to really acknowledge yourself for that and say, it's okay that I don't have it all figured out all the time. Like, I'm someone who is really questing for more, and that's going to require something of me. So
yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed.
See you again soon.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for spending a piece of your day with us and tuning into the Lo and Zoe Show.
If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate it and share on social media. Be sure to tag us.
Until next time,
stay abundant.